In tonight's headlines, President Xi welcomes his Russian counterpart to Beijing, reaffirming 75 years of ties with Moscow. Tentative results of a pay trend survey could see junior-level civil servants get a pay rise of more than 5%. And the Consumer Council alerts parents to be practical and reasonable while buying clothes for babies. Marking 75 years of Sino-Russia relations, leaders of both countries have reaffirmed ties. President Xi Jinping and his Russian counterpart, Vladimir Putin, who is on his second visit to China in less than a year, have signed a declaration that aims to strengthen comprehensive strategic partnerships, further strengthening bilateral ties. Putin's trip comes as Russian forces have pressed an offensive in northeastern Ukraine's Kharkiv region that began last week.
政治解决乌克兰危机是正确方向。
Both sides agreed that a political solution to the Ukraine crisis is the right direction, Xi said, including abiding by the purposes and principles of the United Nations Charter, he added. Commenting on the war in Gaza, President Xi suggested a two-state solution to tackle the Palestine-Israel conflict. He emphasized that Beijing and Russia would continue to contribute to its global peace and stability. Putin expressed gratitude for China's initiatives to resolve the Ukraine conflict. Russia treats China as a reliable and long-term partner, he said. China has significant influence as a key supporter of Russia, and both countries will continue to uphold a position of non-alliance and non-confrontation, Putin added. Before signing the agreement, Xi gave a warm welcome to Putin with full military pageantry in the square outside the East Gate of the Great Hall of the People in Beijing. This is Putin's first state visit after he was sworn in as Russian president for a new term. Janice Lowe, Cable News.
Hong Kong civil servants could see a windfall this year with a pay hike, which could possibly go as high as 5.4%. Results from a pay trend survey, which collected data from more than 110 private firms, showed an average pay rise of 4% for senior civil servants and 4.3 to 5.4% for mid-level and junior staff. Lawrence Lee, chairman of the Pay Trend Survey Committee, said these numbers are not recommendations and it is not sure whether the administration will adopt these figures. Clement Lung, permanent secretary for the civil service, said factors, including the state of the economy, changes in the cost of living, the administration's fiscal position, pay claims from staff and civil service morale, will have to be considered when looking at pay rise for civil servants. Despite the government facing a deficit of $101.6 billion for 2023-24. Financial Secretary Paul Chan has earlier rejected calls to cut civil service pay, saying he did not want to have any negative impact on the market. The Consumer Council has alerted parents to be practical and reasonable while buying clothes for their babies. Infants are likely to chew or pull objects, so it's better to avoid clothing which has long cords or small buttons which could easily come off.
They have different small little parts which are very commonly used in different children clothes for the buttons area. Or more for decoration, purpose. These are more for the buttons. So it is so important to ensure the safety of the kids, and that's why we would urge the manufacturers when they design their product, they should use, of course, better parts, and also should follow the standard when they manufacture and design different clothing for the baby.
Another step the council recommended was to wash new clothing items thoroughly before putting them on babies. Chief Executive of the Consumer Council, Gilly Wong, said she understands some designs could be very attractive, but advised parents to consider not only the price, appearance, and quality of the fabric, but also potential safety hazards. Janice Yu, Cable News. Hong Kong's consumer watchdog tested 25 brands of mosquito repellents and found that most of those which contain the chemicals DEET or picaridin are 80% effective for a period of 4 hours after application. One brand, which has 30 roughly % concentration of DEET, was most effective. However, the Consumer Council warned that high levels of the compound could cause rashes, blisters, and skin irritation. It should be avoided on toddlers unless absolutely necessary.
It is worth noting that for one model, during tests of both types of mosquitoes, on average, at most time points, more mosquitoes landed on tester's forearm after application than without, suggesting that certain ingredients containing in these models may be attractive to mosquitoes, luring them to land if left on the skin.
The watchdog also found labeling on some models to be below standard and recommended the application of sunscreen 15 to 30 minutes before using mosquito repellent. The Consumer Council also warned that people using apps to block spam calls could be at risk of sharing their personal information with third parties. At least 2 of the 5 applications it tested copied the user's contact list to the app's own database. Users registering for one spam blocker through social media platform Facebook were most vulnerable as the app gained access to names, photos, and dates of birth. The council reminded users to stay vigilant when using these apps. Janice Yu, Cable News.
Slovak Prime Minister Robert Fico is in a stable but serious condition after suffering multiple gunshot wounds in an attempted assassination yesterday. At least 5 shots were fired from close range outside a cultural center in the town of Hanlova, roughly 140 kilometers northeast of the capital Bratislava, where 59-year-old Fico was meeting with supporters. He was airlifted to a hospital in the central Slovak city of Banska Bystrica, where he underwent emergency surgery.
Actually, maybe next days we...
Slovak Defense Minister Robert Kalinak said Fico's surgery had gone well and he's likely to survive the attack, which has shocked the small Eastern European nation. A suspect has been detained by police, who is reportedly a 71-year-old writer and political activist.
The 11th edition of the Affordable Art Fair has returned to Hong Kong. Going with the theme of I Am an Art Collector, thousands of pieces of contemporary art costing less than $100,000 were on display at the Convention and Exhibition Center in Wan Chai, in a bid to lure first-time art collectors. Stephanie Kelly, Asia Pacific Managing Director for Affordable Art Fair, emphasized that all artwork on display has a human touch and it's not created using artificial intelligence. The artists have taken the effort to put their imagination, creating bold strokes on the canvas.
I think joy is back, colour's back, connection's back. I think artists, during the pandemic, you know, they had a lot of time in the studio, but the sort of cloud that was overhead really did create the challenging work that we saw over the last few years. But I think what you're seeing now is that, you know, artists have bounced back and celebrating colour, celebrating connection, celebrating fun and joy and the happiness in the future.
Featuring around 100 local and international exhibitors, the fair attracted artists from diverse backgrounds. Marian Ang is one of them. With a Singaporean Chinese ethnicity, the UK-born and raised artist unveiled her latest series, Lucky You, portraying things seen in everyday life alongside antiques to give it a touch of Renaissance.
Everyone has their own personal history and set of memories that they will hopefully associate with each piece. Because I think many of these objects, they aren't very rare. They're quite everyday. And so you'll have your own set of memories attached to it. So I think that is something I also would love to be able to touch upon and the sort of stories I'd also love to hear from people about at the fair.
At the Affordable Art Fair, there are more than artworks. Visitors can head to this Shamtepo-inspired speakeasy bar for a Hong Kong-themed cocktail. Jan Slow, Cable News.